Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the Prime Pediatric Podcast. I am your host, of course, Dr. Skip Weiss, and I am super excited today. I'm elated. I have one of my very dear close friends on today. I have Dr. Steve Tullius. Dr. Steve, I've known him for years now, and I am so happy to have you on here. How are you doing, Dr. Steve?
Hey, doing great, Skip. Thank you so much for the opportunity to share. The feeling's mutual, and thrilled that we get to continue our relationship here.
Hey, I always look at getting to know you, understanding your backstory, understanding everything you do now in the profession. And like, how many years now have you been actually in the chiropractic profession, Steve? Because I know it's almost double mine.
So it's 20 years now, 20
Yeah.
years in practice. I feel like a kid, honestly. I'm just getting started. So yeah.
And now you're in Texas. So tell us a little bit about your backstory, Dr. Steve, how you got started, what you're doing, what you did in San Diego. Like, I know what you did in San Diego left a massive footprint there, and what you're doing now. Can we walk through that a little bit and where you started?
Yeah, absolutely. I'll try to do it as quickly as possible. I just actually got off of another call with my team in San Diego. So we have two locations in San Diego still. I practiced in California for the majority of my career, in San Luis Obispo, for 8 years. I got into chiropractic through sports injuries and car accidents. I was continually getting injured. It kept me in the chiropractic setting. I got to see the sports enhancement benefits of it. I was pre-med, was going to go into medicine. I knew I wanted to be a doctor from an early age. I went to an orthopedic doctor when I had a shoulder injury. He didn't touch me, didn't do anything besides order an MRI, which didn't show anything. And his next solution was to cut me open. And that was just the dramatic pattern interrupt I needed to be like, well, this is not what I want. This other experience in the chiropractic has been so positive. It's like people are laughing, hugging. Not only was my performance enhanced, but I wasn't getting sick at all. I started to see all those benefits. So at that moment, I knew I was born to be a chiropractor. At that point, I was in practice for years. I had what I would call a smorgasbord practice at first. I saw my chiropractor, he was in network with insurance, and not that we don't, not that we can't be in network with insurance, but in that particular model, there was nothing about cash practice. It wasn't about communicating the value of chiropractic. It was that I didn't get any of that for many years. And so I floundered for several years until I found, chiropractic through seminars and through mentors, and eventually sold my practice in 2012. Took off for a year to take that time to travel with my family. Spending 9 months traveling around the world and in that time creating the vision for two different vehicles. One was my new practice, which I wanted to have a pediatric and family practice. Before, I said it was a smorgasbord practice, which was like anybody and everybody with a spine. It wasn't highly targeted, niched out. I was attracting the adults first and then trying to convince the parents why their kids needed care. And in my opinion, that's a backwards model if you really want a pediatric and family practice. It's actually the hard way of going about it. So I instead came to San Diego, started a brand new practice, and with the whole focus on pediatrics. And that's what I built through workshops. A lot of people know me as the workshop guy. That's because
they do now. Yeah.
They do. Yeah. I heard you've been talking about what we do. Thank you. I appreciate that. I appreciate the opportunity to help, your office attract people through workshops. That's what happened. I regularly was getting 10, 15, 25 people to classes. Colleagues saw what I was doing. That morphed into what we have today, which is a program that's serving practices around the country. And so now I run that digital agency from Austin, Texas. I'm about to get licensed in Texas though, because we're going to start a series of practices here in Texas as well. So that's a quick rundown of who I am and what I've been doing.
So, Steve, looking at what you've done and knowing your backstory, I know your backstory pretty intimately. I've heard you speak several times. I've listened to the story about your son and his struggles with pandas and everything changing there. What put you into children? Because here's the thing: like, my life changed because of my daughter. Your life changed because of your son. And it's that draw. Something happens in a chiropractor's life, which changes the trajectory of how they practice. And your son seemed to change yours. How did he change it, Steve? Like what drove you home into this child niche down, child focused, now basically trying to span the globe, literally that map behind your head. I know you want a wait list in every country in the world to try to get to more kids. So what, your son's driving you, but what made you just make that huge jump?
Yeah. So, so for those of you that know me, I'm also very immature. I'm kid-like. I mean, I know that, if you want to have a pediatric practice, you got to be able to communicate with kids and
yes, you do.
Right. And on their level, literally on the ground, like rolling around, all those sorts of things. So for me, that's pure joy. Like that's fun. Right. And, so that's what got me wanting that. But then I started to go into the autism and ADHD, and because I realized like that's where the kids were at, right? And they're being massively impacted. And then my son was challenged with pandas. For those that don't know what pandas is, make sure you are on top of it, because there's a lot of kids being impacted by this autoimmune encephalitis, which is basically another version of autism. It just depends upon how and when the insult or injury occurs. And we didn't know what it was for years, and so it was massive. It's hard to even remember how challenging it was. But that's through that whole process, I had access to resources because I was seeing all these kids with autism, these challenges. The parents know more than the providers oftentimes. So parents were helping us through resources. I was helping them by building this big team of other providers in the San Diego area and around the world. And my son's situation and our challenges, like I don't want any family to ever have to go through that, and I also know that I wish that I had an office as kind, loving, compassionate, caring, as impactful as the chiropractic offices are for these families, right? I mean, they're on these islands by themselves. Like no one understands.
Feel like it.
Right. It's, and so if they could find offices like yours, like mine, like everyone who's watching this, just realize they don't know what to do next. They're so paralyzed from the trauma and the challenges, and we know that a clear and healthy nervous system is foundational, and combined with the loving, caring support and then directing them to the next steps too, that's where real change can happen for these families. So that massively drives me, combined with our professional objective, the glory of going on, BJ Palmer. There's a multitude of sick people out there, and our professional objective is to help actualize as close to a utopian society as possible. If every man, woman, child was checked from birth throughout a lifetime, we wouldn't have the pandemic that we just went through. We wouldn't have it would massively shift the socioeconomics of the planet. And so all of that drives me, and I can't stop. I'm compelled to move forward.
I know you're driven, Steve, and I know you're driven, Dr. Steve, and I've sat in your talks. I've listened to you. I've heard you talk about health and how you talk to your patients about it. And, I feel that, and I'm going to come back at you on one thing. I think that parents, the other side of it is you get the ones that don't know what to do because they just got the diagnosis, or you get the ones that have been given everything under the sun but chiropractic. And they don't even know how to sort through the bullshit. They've been given OT, speech, they've been given PT, they've been given birth to 3. And they're trying to seek out this diagnosis, which the diagnosis helps in the world of them getting funding from their states to help them pay for the resources. Like it opens up resources. I find it really, really disheartening that resources are closed off because they don't have a diagnosis. And the one major resource is chiropractic. The one major thing we have, are these 2 hands that can literally change the life of any person that comes in front of us. And you know that. Right. But how do you help that patient, that mom and that dad, Steve? I think this is something that's amazing about you. How do they sort through that when you're talking to them? How do they sort through all of the information, literally all of the things, and try to cut through that noise and drive home that meaning that the chiropractic adjustment is going to be the vehicle to help their child heal the absolute best they can.
Yeah, thank you for that question, Skip, because I don't always, because I've been doing this for so long, I don't always think about like what it is that I'm doing, because that is my jam. I know how to navigate that entire conversation and shift people and help them understand why what we're doing is foundational and pivotal. And so you mentioned that I'm driven. If clinically I had to be diagnosed, maybe someone would say I'm obsessed. I'm obsessed with this, with helping every single individual understand what the value of chiropractic, right? What it is, and so that anyone who ever would sit in one of my classes, I could take the most extreme skeptic and take them from this, pissed off person that wishes they weren't there, to at the end leaning in and like, oh yeah, that makes sense. Subluxation is common. And so that's what I obsessed over in general. I call that the patient education journey. Now, we then apply that to the psychology of what you just mentioned, those people who they're either paralyzed or they have so much, noise, like how do they then choose us? So it's a combination of empathy, right? Understanding. One of the things I try to help chiropractors that don't have a child with one of these neurodevelopmental challenges is it's essential to get into the psychology and the feelings of those people, right? I mean, we recently did a branding exercise where we have an avatar named April, and all the things she's feeling. She's, they can't go to Christmas, they're being judged by their closest friends and family. They lose their friends and family. They're not being invited to things anymore. There's this constant just feeling of no one really understanding them. So when they come into an office where they say, hey, we get it and we understand, like really empathizing with them. And then, so that's the first step. Like, they got to feel safe. They got to feel that this is safe, that they're not going to be judged, that it's a safe environment. The second thing is then addressing some of the objections that they have. Chiropractic, how's chiropractic going to help my child with, begin to speak, or whatever, right? So then we need to create some differentiation between what we do and what everyone else does. And so I like to start with salutogenesis. There's so many deep layers of psychology to this. Salutogenesis is a big word, right? We use big words. In medicine, they use big words to confuse people.
Yep.
In chiropractic, we can use a big word like salutogenesis to create a momentary pattern interrupt and then make it simple, right? That's, subluxation, big word, then make it simple. Like, all that that needs to happen. And so, but the thing I say, so they need empathy, then they need certainty. They need a rock. They need someone who, if you look away at the wrong time, you will lose those people. They need someone so certain. And so what I say is, the reason that we get the results that we get in this clinic, bold. They need someone who's comes off as a specialist, who's certain, who's bold, but not arrogant, who's combined with empathy. And the reason we get the results we get in this clinic is because we have a different approach.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, okay, but I'm just piquing their interest. So then we go to a pattern interrupt. Now we need to share a big story. We need to share, if you want anyone to buy anything you sell, and that's what we're talking about, we're selling this chiropractic idea, then we need to combine logical certainty. Every step of the informational journey needs to be airtight logically, but people don't buy logically, they buy emotionally. And so many times I know I've experienced this. Oh, hey doc, that's fantastic information. Thank you so much. See you later. Right. And then they walk out versus they got the logical certainty. It made total sense. The emotional certainty is where the testimonials and making it relevant and the passion and all come in together. That's when they buy, when they feel that you are the person, thing, service to get them unstuck. So saying things like, hey, look, we get it. We understand, you right now, you are very likely feeling very stuck, like, and not sure where to go next.
Yep.
And so talking their language, I'm like, yeah, I do. Right. And then the last, that's not necessarily the last, but this is a critical piece. This is an educational piece that I've been sharing for years. I call it the healthcare recipe. And you've heard me share this before. Because the challenge is, like, people, we think they understand the nervous system, even if we explain it, right? But they don't. We live in it all day long. We're talking about it all day long. So I tell people, okay, all right, we're gonna make a cake, okay, and we're gonna make this health cake, and we're gonna use the ingredients for health. And they know the ingredients for health, right? It's like these people know them. They may not be eating them or using them, but they're going to tell you, like, what do you need to be healthy? Good food, nutrition, water, sleep, sunshine, social relationships, right? They're going to say all these things. Like, yeah, absolutely. So we're going to take these ingredients. We're going to take the eggs. We're going to throw them in the bowl. We're not going to crack the shells open, though. We're just going to throw them in whole. We're going to squeeze a tube of frosting in there, pour some milk in, then dump a bag of flour on top and put it in the oven for 20 minutes, take it out. How many of you would love to have a piece of our health cake here? People learn through stories. That story it's insane. It's like, okay, yeah, no, I don't want that. And I tell them, so, well, why not? Like, why don't you? We used all the ingredients, right? Like, well, and what's wrong with this cake? And then finally, people will start, they're like, oh, you didn't follow the steps. You didn't. I said, yeah, well, what else do we call that? What? And they'll say the recipe, right? And I say, that's what we've been missing since the dawn of time. We're missing the key thing. The nervous system is the recipe. That's the thing that coordinates all those ingredients and allows us to build healthy, strong bodies, adaptable, right? So you have this story that's relatable. I use a recipe because most of the people in front of me are going to be women. And I know that may sound, in today's world, that may sound, sexist or whatever, but the reality is that, that they can relate more to that typically. And not that, and men can too. They're in it. They relate to it as well. And then boldness, which we have typically been apologetic as a profession. We haven't been so strong in our certainty to say something like, we've been missing this. We've been neglecting, using strong words, powerful words. We've been neglecting the nervous system. And Steve Hoffman used that word neglect years ago. I remember that one thing for him. He's like, yeah, we've been neglecting our nervous system. Neglect is a powerful word. Like, we've been neglecting the nervous system, arguably the most, not arguably, but the most important system in the entire body.
Exactly.
So when you combine all those things, and then after that, now you have permission to really focus on the nervous system, being foundational. And eventually you ask them, how common do you think subluxation is? They then tell you very common. At that point, like, you've won. So
they've consciously made the decision to know that it's real.
Yeah. So
I think it's one of those things where we look at the examples that you said, and the parent has too much noise going on in the brain. They can't cut through the crap. And it's figuring out the empathy, having a direct plan for them, having confidence, having certainty, and being able to get that across to them, that what you're going to do. And you need to be bold. We don't need to be we need to not stop being vanilla and watering down what we do, because what we do is so much more than vanilla. Like, we're a freaking rainbow, man. And like, everything we do brightens the universe, makes things better. And we get to express that God-given ability to heal ourselves. And when we're not healing ourselves, there's a serious problem. And we need to fix that. We need to get the healing back. We need to get the communication back so the body actually starts running normal again. It's just like with these kids. We know if we're talking ADD, if we're talking neurology, if we're talking prefrontal cortex development, you know, with these kids, that these kids have too much noise going on in their brain because the brain is literally inundated with poor afferent information. So here's the thing. The parent is just like that, except they're getting nonstop information from every source all around them. And they need to figure out how to finite in and trust the one individual that they know that can get them there. And I know as chiropractors, we can do it. Now, Steve, I know for a fact you do something that is beyond anybody else in chiropractic. I get a fact to use it here in our office nonstop, and we get to use Waitlist workshops. And Waitlist has been that ability to bridge the gap and get to the people in our community that we need, that needs our help. And we can cut through all the other BS through using your workshops and the importance of using a workshop. Can you talk a little bit about the importance of having a workshop in your office, number one, but then talk about Waitlist? Like my team, like my listeners, you all know about Waitlist. I've talked to it on about 4 or 5 times on here in the last year since I started using Steve's product back in October, and it's made a massive difference. Can you tell us a little bit about how great Waitlist really is?
Yeah, you know, what I wanted to create with Waitlist workshops is one. I always call it a vehicle. Right? It's a vehicle to help fund ultimately this big idea mission that we're talking about. For local offices, I wanted something. I wanted something for the profession that to help get the profession back on track to helping the sickest of the sick. And we got so sidetracked into the musculoskeletal box, you know, through insurance reimbursement and you know, now those that you know me, I've been involved politically in the profession for a long time. There's lots of reasons why we're in this musculoskeletal box. We often place ourselves in that box. So if we want to really take a step back and look at it, we look at what's on our walls. Look at what our brochures say. Look at our websites. You know, what is the message? And often, what do our ads saying? Are we doing low back pain, neck pain exam ads, right? And not that those things are bad, but if you want something different, if you want a pediatric practice, you can't have these conflicting messages. If you don't want the public to be, if you're tired of people coming in and saying, oh, you know, well, I just, you know, I got this. I don't think you got it, doc. You know, can you push again, right? Like if you want to move people out of the musculoskeletal framework of their understanding of chiropractic, that limited view, which is limiting their potential and their family's potential and society's potential, then we have to do something different. Mm-hmm. And it's not fair that unfortunately our leaders that for the last 30 years have been so invested in this insurance model and this musculoskeletal model, and even things like the F4CP, so we have plans to create the profession's first vertebral subluxation awareness org, which would actually get people reframe the entire conversation. And so that's what workshops do. I believe it was Reggie Gold or Jim Sigafus, 2 of the greatest chiropractors to ever live. One of them, I can't remember which one it was. So they said, they were asked the question, if you only had 30 seconds in an elevator to explain chiropractic, what would you say? And they said, I'd use those 30 seconds to convince them to get them to my lay lecture. You can't possibly explain the value of chiropractic and what it is in 30 seconds. What I just described, you know, I just described a short part of the patient education journey. It takes an hour. It takes multiple sequences and steps to take people out of their indoctrinated inside out brainwashing and to rekindle that flame of their background theory, their true awareness that they are born to be healthy and not sick, to rekindle that and then take them on this journey. So workshops, I would never start a practice now without workshops. In fact, that's the only marketing I've done for the last 10 years for my practice. And the Texas practices that we're going to create here, completely workshop marketing based, because it builds the practice of your dreams. It brings the people in your ideal target market, whatever that is. Mm-hmm. And now you have them, they've sat through, I call it day 0. They've sat through an hour of your class. Now they know who you are. If they decide to schedule an exam, it means they trust you. they understand your value and what it is you're going to do. And so then it's their report of findings is simple. It's just let them know, hey, here's what we recommend. They view you as a specialist. They're going to take your recommendations. It's in my opinion, the best way to build the practice of our dreams.
It allows you to create those amazing relationships in an hour. And I mean, you can create a relationship in 10 minutes, but you can't create a trusting relationship in 10 minutes. It allows you to create a relationship in 45 minutes to an hour, answer questions, knock down walls and questions in their head before they even have to answer them. And they actually understand that you get it. And I think that that's the biggest thing. And telling stories in these waitlists in these workshops is huge. Tying them into stories is huge. It allows you to create massive amounts of rapport with the person sitting in front of you and interaction. And they just start to see what this is all about. And then what happens is you start tying it in even more and saying, yeah, this is why you're actually in a chiropractor's office. And you might have tried chiropractic before. A lot of people have, but they haven't had the right recipe. They haven't had the right steps. They haven't had the doctor with the confidence and the clarity to know that recipe is there. And you guys that are listening know this. My amazing subscribers and the ones that will be coming on shortly, even more through talking with you, Dr. Steve, is it's just, this gives you the clarity and it gives you the confidence. And with Waitlist, Dr. Steve, what do they actually get? What is the product that they're actually receiving? How does it work? How do you bring patients into your market, from your market into your office?
Yeah. So what I wanted to create was a totally, I was going to say totally done for you system. Like we don't come and speak for you.
No,
in fact,
that's up to the doctor.
Yeah, because and we've even considered that. There's companies out there that will do events where they give you a video to play for people. That's not us.
Yeah, the video doesn't work.
Because we want you to create the relationship and we want you to, and the providers to be built up there. When we speak, our certainty grows. I used to be deathly afraid of public speaking. Now I can speak in front of thousands of people with no problem because I decided to push myself outside of my comfort zones, and grow. And so speaking helps people do that. So what we do is doctors just give us the time, date, and location, and we do the rest. We handle all the advertising for the events. We handle all the landing pages. We handle the leads coming into the system, the pre-event emails and text messages. There's some limited lead nurturing that needs to happen, as you know, with your office in terms of responding to text messages and emails that your leads might send to you. But they get the content. So we have currently 6 different workshop titles. We recommend giving 3 right now. Those are because those 3 address the 70% of sick people in our country. The Unraveling Neurodevelopmental Disorders workshop, the Mental Health Matters workshop, which is highly popular given what the pandemic did to our nation in the last 2 years. And the gut-brain connection class, which is going to attract women aged 34 to 54 with autoimmune issues, fibromyalgia, all those sorts of things. That I created those 3 topics because, again, from a strategic perspective, that accounts for the 60 to 70% of sick people in our country. There's no shortage of sick people. Like that's like that. I say that all the time. There is no shortage. There is a shortage of demand, right? There's no shortage in need. There's a shortage in demand. So we help create the demand for that extraordinary need. And that's exciting to me, right? To funnel the sickest of the sick, the people, the quote unquote miracle cases. And when offices attract those miracle cases, right? And of course, we know it's not a miracle. Life is miraculous, and we just get to unfurl that. When that happens, it grows the confidence of the practitioner. It increases then the referrals for the practice. It increases the amplitude and the radius of their impact, their voice. And we get people traveling from Florida to our office in San Diego, even though we try to get them to go to offices in Florida, but they demand to come see us, right? We just did an epilepsy workshop, and a grandmother was there, and the child's in Fresno, and we're like, okay, we'll get you a referral. They're like, no, we're bringing them to you, right? And that's what it does. Like it just And that's what, I mean, that's what our profession used to do. People used to travel from all over to see, to go to the BJ Palmer Clinic or the Gonstead Clinic. Or why? Because of the results that they were getting, which is why people are working with you. To have that clinical certainty and the ability to detect and correct and get the results that our profession promises to people.
Yeah. And I think that's amazing. Boy, Steve, this has been absolutely fantastic to learn about this, to learn about your passion. And it's been nothing but an absolute honor to work with you and to be able to work with your company, sit side by side with you, start galvanizing between me and you, and just in creating some massive things. And it's been nothing short of amazing. Dr. Steve, how does everybody get a hold of you? How can they find out more information about Waitlist workshops and just know more about what you do?
Yeah, so connecting with me on Facebook is always a great way. Facebook Messenger, friend request me on Facebook. Have 5,000 people, but I can weed some out because there's a lot of people that aren't interacting anymore. So if you want to interact, that's a great way. We have the Waitlist Workshops free group on Facebook. That's a fantastic way to get all kinds. I mean, we're dropping so much free content in there on every topic related to workshops. We've had you come in and do interviews. We had several interviews today already. So join there. Waitlistworkshops.com as well to schedule a call. We have a phenomenal onboarding opportunity. It's only $500 to get started. That's $1,000 savings right now. And so happy to extend that to any of your viewers. And, it's been an absolute privilege to be able to serve your office, Skip, to know the caliber of office and what's being provided, actual chiropractic being provided. And we don't work with everybody. We have a grading system, whether or not, what do they have on their websites? What do they have? Are they objectively addressing subluxation? Because we have a moral obligation as well as a marketing company to make sure people are getting into the right offices. So thank you for the opportunity as well.
Well, you're welcome. It's been an absolute honor to have to work with it. And I'm telling you, we got Waitlist, we got NDD talk next week. So, and I mean, we've got 45 people in the pipeline right now in communication back and forth, confirming. It's phenomenal. Your nurturing sequences, all of that are just wonderful. And Steve, I appreciate it. I appreciate all of your work. And to be honest with you right now, Steve, if it hadn't been for your drive and your work and pushing together and putting together this stuff, the docs out there right now wouldn't have the avenues to be able to create and talk to more people in their communities. And you have such a service, Dr. Steve, and you need to know that and keep pushing, brother, because I'm seeing it. I'm seeing your impact worldwide. I'm seeing it nationwide, and it just means a lot. And without you, I wouldn't have the ability to talk to my community like I have either. And I do talk a lot and we get a lot of traction, but this helps even more, brother. So thank you so much from the bottom of my heart. Thank you so much for being on here. And it just means a lot. So thank you so much for coming on, Dr. Steve.
I appreciate that, Dr. Skip. It touches me emotionally. You forget, I'm sitting here in my office, right? I'm disconnected from the chiropractic practices. I'm not in your community. So the fact, just sharing that means a lot to me. So thank you for again, for that opportunity.
You're welcome, brother. You're welcome. Now, everybody, go out there and get it done. Take care, everybody.
All right. Thanks. See ya.